Thank you for auditing the unedited, always positive new music review show hosted by a French professor who's still clearing the decks. I'm clearing the decks. I went on vacation for a few weeks. I missed a lot of albums. It's been a long time. I shouldn't have left you without some Nas reviews to step to. So I'm going to be reviewing the album Magic 2 by Nas. I've reviewed every album he's released since I started this channel. And my initial question is, as always, Nas fans, are we good? Escobites, are we good? You know, I pronounce his name properly now. I've gone through a long way. I had no idea when I proposed the idea that I thought that he was overrated, that I was somehow a part of this long racist discussion or comparing him to Jay-Z. I didn't know. And I've ultimately realized that I was wrong, that he's not overrated. He's, if anything, realistically underrated, despite the fact he's often called one of the best of all time. I bought tickets to see the show at Madison Square Garden, and when I couldn't go, I gave them away to a Nas fan. So I hope we're good. I want my much vaunted yes. And the thing I'll say about this new album is we might start to get what you call excellence fatigue. I think about this a lot with all the work that Griselda's putting out and the Griselda affiliates are putting out, where you're just sort of like, God damn, another one? Like another great album? Like another amazing album with great rhymes, amazing beats? I'm not tired of it, but I almost didn't review it because I'm always trying to think of what more can we even say about this unprecedented run. And it really is unprecedented. No one in rap history has done anything like this. I mean, what RZA did with Wu-Tang in the early days was more impressive than this, but it wasn't exactly the same thing of just having two great legendary collaborators collaborating and making great albums. And what's funny is that, you know, with these 5 great albums in a row, for some reason, I just keep coming back to sports metaphors. I don't know. I've been going through my dad's house, and I found a lot of my old sports cards. And the last Nas review album, I compared Nas to Justin Verlander and Jay-Z to Pedro Martinez, both great pitchers who are known for being a little bit on the Mets, you know, Queensbridge represent with the Mets. But I think instead I'm going to compare it to a different great New York Met, Nolan Ryan. So if you don't know, Nolan Ryan is arguably the best pitcher of all time. And on April 27th, 1983, he became the #1 strikeout king. So no pitcher in history ever threw more strikeouts than Nolan Ryan. And he got that award in 1983. Okay? He'd retire like 10 years later. He would go on to lead the league in strikeouts 4 more times in those next 10 years. Now, second place to Nolan Ryan is 1,000 strikeouts behind, okay? That's sort of what Nas is doing right now. He could have just done the 3 King's diseases in a couple of years, and we'd be like, wow, no one's ever done this. This is just outrageous. And then he'd throw the magic on there. But now at this point, he's just, like he says, he's just like water. They have this working relationship, and part of our job as humanists, as people who are appreciating culture, is to not let ourselves get that excellence fatigue, to just really try to soak it in and appreciate how much high quality, emotionally resonant rap music, hip hop culture is being dropped on our heads what seems like every other week. But while I'm here in the realm of comparing one of the great rap artists of all time to boomer white guys, he himself compares himself to a different guy. So he doesn't compare himself to, you know, Nolan Ryan. He compares himself to Neil Young. There's a point in the album where he says, Neil Young with a bounce. So let's go into this little metaphor here, because I think this is pretty good. I think this actually betrays an understanding of Neil Young, which I did not expect Nas to have. Not because he's not smart enough. I just didn't know that Nas was a Neil Young fan. But if you don't know, everyone else from the 60s, basically everyone else, I'm including the greats, the Beatles, the Rolling Stones, Beach Boys, when they hit the 90s and the 80s, they just kind of fell apart. And like, they released some good stuff, but realistically, you would not put anything that any of the greats of the 60s did in the 90s and put it up with their catalog of the 60s, with the exception of Neil Young. Sleeps with Angels, Broken Arrow, Harvest Moon. I mean, he released these albums in the 90s as an old dude from the 60s, which was 30 years ago, the same way that it was written and Illmatic and all that was 30 years ago. In a way, it does actually make sense because very few rap artists of the 90s are still making great new music that you can put on par with their old music. I don't know, Nas fans, I don't know, Escabites, if I'm going to piss you off by saying that I actually prefer listening to the King's Disease trilogy and the Magic duology to Illmatic. You're mad. I get it. I get it. But I do. I'm not saying it's better. Obviously, Illmatic is like a giant and all that and all of its influence. I'm not saying it's better. But you just asked me to put on a Nas album, I would totally gravitate towards these new things. The same way that I would gravitate towards listening to Sleeps with Angels by Neil Young instead of putting on After the Gold Rush. I just would. And it is a testament to something that nobody has done. Nobody has made this high quality rap music for this long. Again, I'm looking at you, Jay. You want to come out with a new album? Make 888. I don't care what it is. You're capable of doing it. You're alive and you're still a genius, so why don't you do it? All right, so let's get into the album. Before I do, the algorithm is starting to forgive me. People criticized the fact that I said bad things about cats. Someone said that I've never owned a cat. I have. I had Krusty the cat. I saved him from a shelter, and he actually went on to win $5,000 on America's Funniest Home Videos because he would sing along to a harmonica. I didn't make the video, so I didn't get a red cent of that, but that's a whole nother story. But the algorithm is starting to forgive me, so please continue that. Please smash the like bucket, subscribe if you haven't. If you ring the bell, which I don't think you should do because that's just stupid, but if you do, then you'll get my fake titles. I do a fake title for every video that I immediately take down. That's just for people who ring the bell. And if you want to leave a comment that gets a guaranteed heart, include the letters AVAA in that comment. Awesome video as always, and I'll leave a heart. You can even make me leave a heart on saying weird stuff like Skye, you're a Nas hater, AVAA. I'll have to put a heart on that. You know what I'm saying? Go ahead, goof around. So I do think this album is bottom heavy. Like the back half of this album is just stupid good. And the opening half of the album, it's not mid, but it's the low point on the last couple of years of Nas and Hit Boy. Nas Boy? Nas Hit Nas? What are we calling this, by the way? What are we calling this thing? Because we can't just call it the KD thing. We can't just call it the Magic thing. Well, whatever this is that's happening. So when I'm going to give you a stamp, an example song, Click Above the Banana, Above Neil, I think the best song on the album, at least my favorite song on the album, is Pistols on Your Album Cover. This shows the best of Hit Boy's production, which is always, it's excellence fatigue. He does things that are not super flashy, but he does them so well. He executes sampling and turning samples around and layering them differently. In this case, it's kind of a jazzy thing. And then Nas just does this thing so well, so consistently throughout all these projects where basically Hit Boy gets the beat going and it sort of like starts to get going, and then Nas comes in. The second that Nas comes in, then the beat really gets going, and then all of a sudden you realize you're in the middle of a chorus, and then nothing changes, and then you're in the middle of the first verse, and then halfway through the first verse something changes, and then you realize you're at the end of the second verse, and then they go back into the chorus. So most rap artists will have a distinct verse, a distinct chorus, and that's that. There's this sort of weaving that goes on with these projects where, and it's just, again, Nas compares himself to water, and it does actually work in that way, where there's just a real flow. And a lot of it's because of this seamless passage from the first chorus into the first verse that comes out of the buildup of the initial introduction of the beat. It's cool, right? Isn't that a fun way to think about it? I mean, maybe you noticed that already. I now have to go back and think about the rest of the Nas hit collaborations and try to figure out like whether or not this has been going on the entire time. What's great is just the delivery here. You know, eyes blurry, saying goodbye at the cemetery. He's making a Tupac reference, a Tupac quote here. Tupac figures heavily in the song. I murder uns on wax and forget where they buried. great line. This is the hardest ish since Rakim and Eric B. So all the way throughout this whole quintology, is that what we call it? A 5-part something? He's compared himself and Hit Boy to different duos. I think Rakim and Eric B is a good comparison. I forgot to take out my Eric B and Rakim CDs, but I have a couple of those. I am going, it's funny because I'm going to the Hip Hop 50 celebration in the Bronx on Friday, at Yankee Stadium, the house that A-Rod built. And I am really excited for it. And when I looked at the names, I'm like, oh my God, they got everybody. And then the first thing I thought of is, why didn't they get these people? So I'm a little bit frustrated that neither Eric B nor Rakim are going to be making an appearance. But what are you going to do? You can only have so many people. You got to make space for, what's that guy? The black and yellow guy. You got to make space for him. He's got to have top billing. Wiz Khalifa. Anyway, so comparing themselves to Eric B and Rakim really does make sense because Rakim is whatever, top 2 MC of all time, top 3, worst case scenario. And then Eric B, top 5, top 10 producer of all time, and they worked together. And what they did was they made rap stupid hard. And it wasn't hard because they were going to kill you. It was hard because the cadence of the voice and the strength of the beats just go together, and you realize, hey, that's what Nas and Hit Boy are doing. Or Pistols on your album cover, just like BDP. Now, you hear BDP, and for me, I get confused because I think a lot about the geography of New York rap music. Of course, hip-hop started in the Bronx. Of course, hip-hop was perfected in Queens. So what do we do with this confusion here, right? What do we do with this confusion here where there was a huge debate, huge fights, usually just on wax, not really in person, but I'm sure there were some actual altercations between Bronx and Queensbridge as to who are the real people who really started rap music and hip-hop. So having someone from Queens shouting out BDP is interesting. We're going to see he develops this as a theme throughout here. But then he just goes right into the first verse. Single mothers on the EBT just try to feed their seeds. You know, EBT is food stamps. That's the specific term for it. Scammers and boosters living nice off the EDD. So that's like the economic options that were given to people for COVID. CCTV, all the cameras shoot you. So he's playing out all these acronyms. He's painting this picture of people just trying to get by, either by scamming or by getting government assistance. And it's all tied into Eric B and BDP and EDT and EBP and EDD and CCTV. And it's all together, and it's just seamless. It's just seamless. Like, they are such a well-tuned machine at this point. Just like Nolan Ryan, man. Then he went to the Rangers, and he just like kept kicking ass. That's what this is. This is like 1989 Nolan Ryan. You're like, aren't you an old man? Aren't you supposed to not be the best anymore? As was really clear on the last King's Disease from earlier this, I don't know, was it earlier this year, last year, whenever it was? He has sort of multiple modes. I think one thing that he does well on this, and this is something that I gave him credit for before, but I think I need to spend more time really appreciating his forward and backwards ability. So his ability to really talk about hip hop in an extremely intelligent way. And I don't mean like, it's like there's like an emotional intelligence, right? Because he's not just saying like, Cool Herc and his sister Cindy at the rec center on August 11th, 1973. It's not like that. It's like he talks about the early days of hip hop when someone who, you know, I didn't quite live through them, but, you know, I was a kid in the 80s. I listened to BDP growing up. I listened to all the people he's talking about. Like, he has like a love that comes through, and he never feels like he's trying to teach you anything, but you sort of can't help but learn a lot. It's the most agreeable way to talk about the old school of hip hop. And in general, I don't like it when people talk about the old school of hip hop. Yeah, as a matter of fact, so the whole thing is this reference to BDP and having pistols on your album cover, like such as Criminal Minded. And I gotta be honest, I've never like been that big into Boogie Down Productions. It was partly because I mainly knew them after KRS-One became a solo act. Sorry, my daughter's having her diaper changed upstairs. That's the noise. Smash a like bucket if you think that's cool. That now at this point they're just getting rude. Hey Toby, I understand you love KRS-One. Knowledge reigns supreme over nearly everyone, but not you. Would you please go back on the couch? Seriously, trying to make me edit my videos. KRS-One was just too preachy for me. And he still is, very much talking about hip-hop and what is hip-hop and what isn't hip-hop. And I felt that he's just way too prescriptive and way too dismissive of other interpretations of what hip-hop is. And that sort of came through in his music, and it made it feel preachy. And the way that he talked about the way things used to be, I thought made the world smaller. And the way Nas talks about it makes the world bigger. It invites you to go back and listen to BDP, or as we'll see in a second, listen to MC Shan, right? So he's able to talk about the past in this way, but then he just drops all of these wisdoms of age. You know, he's almost 50 years old, right? He's almost 50 years old. So time goes faster. Time moves faster the more you get up there in age. And that's true, time does move faster, up until you have a baby when you're 45, in which case time slows right back down again. And then he talks a lot about Tupac's father, who apparently was in jail and then was apparently freed. And then he actually gets to a sample of KRS-One. What's funny is the sample that he's taking is from a song called Hip Hop versus Rap. And this is just one of my favorite things to get frustrated by, is when people really draw a hard line between rap and hip hop, implying that one is good hip hop and the other is bad rap. Speaking of which, I can't wait to see Lupe Fiasco perform at the Hip Hop 50 thing, because as far as I understood, he didn't think that we should be calling this the 50th anniversary of hip hop, because he really sees that more as being in like 79. So I'm interested to see if maybe he'll talk about that in the performance. But again, Hit Boy just does things, excellence fatigue, his ability to match this jazzy sample with this little quote from KRS-One is just perfect. And then in the interlude, he refers to himself as MC Shan with an Uzi. It's my copy of MC Shan, Down by Law. Great old, people sleep on MC Shan. He's like a super important old school rapper. Jane's done this crazy thing. Just a great Project Ho. That's maybe a little on the misogynist side. And then, of course, The Bridge, that he's best known for. Whole thing is produced by Marley Marl, who's going to be performing on Friday. I get to see Marley Marl in concert. Very excited. Top 5 producer for me. Easy. At times he's number 1, depending on how much Cold Chillin' I've been listening to. And so this is that real sort of cool thing that he's doing, because he's not really underlining it, but saying, I'm MC Shan with an Uzi, pistol on your album cover just like BDP. These were the people who were at the center of the fight. Okay? These were the guys. This was the fight. This was Bronx versus Queens. Now, of course, they settled their beef because of Sprite. KRS-One, who's never going to sell out, who promised he'd never sell out, did a Sprite commercial with MC Shan, which actually, props to Sprite for doing something pretty interesting in the 90s. Anyways, then he goes on to talk about how he put Tupac onto drinking Hennessy, which is funny because realistically, Tupac is the person that really popularized Hennessy for an entire generation of rap artists and rap fans. Which is also funny because Nas then went on to sell out to Hennessy, and I get it that he actually likes Hennessy, but he's a sellout for Hennessy, and it's okay. Everyone can be a sellout. If you do an ad for someone, you're selling out. That's okay. It's just the fact, okay? If I start doing sponsorships, I will be literally selling out, okay? For now, don't use a VPN, and just go to a mattress store, okay? But, you know, so he did like sell out and is a spokesperson for Hennessy. So it's funny in that way of thinking about MC Shan and KRS-One essentially settling their beef over a Sprite commercial, and then having him talking about Hennessy in a way where, like, I bet Hennessy slipped him some money. but it still doesn't matter. It's such a great track. The history revisionists, they put themselves where they didn't dwell. I was there, saw them almost ish themselves. You know, just like constantly putting himself into history while trying to say how cool he is and how cool things were and how much people lie. And then he ends the whole song with just another one of these little pearls of wisdom. My journey was great but difficult. What is life if it isn't both? And then it just stops. And isn't that just... My journey was great but difficult. What is life if it isn't both? There you go. There you go. That's the truth. All right, let's go through the rest of the album. The introduction, you know, so, okay. So, he's maybe a little too much into the word magic. It sort of feels a little bit like a gimmick, where it's like, okay, anything that has, but again, whatever. He's released 5 albums in like 3 minutes, so I guess he needs things to talk about. So having Don Magic Wand on the beginning here doesn't quite fit. I don't really associate Nas with sort of pimp mythology here. He mentions being a pimp of sort of rhymes later, but this just, you know, this is a great reminder of where Snoop got his swag. You know, not so great, you know, like it's very clear that Snoop is just trying to be Don Magic Wand, but it doesn't quite work except for the word magic. And then the first track is called Abracadabra. So I'm going to make a prediction. I'm going to make a prediction that there is going to be a Magic 3, and that on that we are going to have this scene from Talladega Nights featuring John C. Reilly as Cal Naughton Jr., okay?
It's my time now.
Oh, really?
Shake and Bake is dead. We just came up with a new nickname.
Oh, no, it's so good.
I got a new nickname,
So
the Magic Man. Now you see me? Now you don't.
That was the stupidest nickname I've ever heard.
Is it, Ricky? Because I think you wish you thought of it.
All right, you got me. That's an awesome nickname.
So, I don't know. The sort of silliness of having Abracadabra and Don Magic Wand and then later Urban Magic Johnson, it's okay. It's a little goofy. So I'm just waiting for Now You See Me, Now You Don't. Abracadabra, I think, is the worst song on the album. It's still nuts, though. I still like this song. Part of the reason that I don't like it is okay. I came to appreciate it by understanding that I thought it was just trying to sound like modern rap music. You know, he's using kind of a triplet flow here. It's kind of like boring trap hi-hats. But then if you listen carefully, Hit Boy's beat is insane with these harpsichord sounds and this great bass and these burpy synthesizers. It almost feels like a bolero. There's a complexity, which even though it's trying to sound like something modern and simple, it's still Hit Boy just, you know, like, what are you supposed to do? Like, what are you supposed to do when he's so good at this beat? And also, hey, it's fun hearing Nas do a triplet flow. And then he makes references to Faces of Death, which definitely dates him. If you don't know, Faces of Death was this magical, horrible cassette. It was a VHS that was exploitative and just was a compilation of people actually dying on screen. So you would actually watch people die. And if you're like me, that gives you a certain feeling. I remember very specifically one of the scenes is a plane crashing in the woods, and I'm not lying to you when I tell you my number one recurring nightmare, despite the fact I'm afraid of flying, my number one recurring nightmare is seeing an airplane crash because of that MFing Faces of Death video that shows a bunch of plane crashes, okay? Seriously, 3 nights ago, I was walking around with my daughter and there was like a weird spaceship flying around, and then I looked up and there was a giant 747 Air France Boeing that went up like this, and the door opened and people started falling out, and then it crashed. And I told my daughter, the weird thing is I have nightmares about watching planes crash. And then I woke up, okay? So that's Faces of Death. Give you the shakes like Faces of Death tapes when that lady got hit on the track. So there is a thing of a woman getting hit by a train. Probably. I only watched like 10 minutes of that thing and I want to puke. I remember Jonathan rented it. Jonathan helped me learn a lot about hip hop, lived down the street. Used to hang out with him. He used to fart all the time when he was eating Cinnamon Toast Crunch in the morning. Very gross, but very great guy. He introduced me to Houdini, Fat Boys, a lot of stuff. But he also was the guy who got the Faces of Death tape, and I couldn't watch it because I was going to puke. But here's the thing. The lady got hit on the track, and it makes you sick. But then also hit on the track. Hit boys on the track. Later, Nas says, you can't put a grade on this. That's right. I don't put grades on anything. I don't give grades. I don't give scores. Nothing out of 10. Not A, B, C, D, E, or F. Because this is culture, everybody. Okay? You can't win culture. You can have opinions, and you can have thoughts, and you can have observations, and you can share those. But you want me to put a number to it? I'm gonna make a fart noise under my armpit. That's what I'm gonna do. He's the magic man. Then we get to Office Hours, which again is this opening half of the album. It's just not quite as strong. Talks about, be like water, like Bruce Lee tells you. But again, it's a totally different flow. It's an amazing chorus and a very interesting this conceit of seeing all the Fredos. So he's making reference to The Godfather, and Fredo being the character played by John Cazale. How do you even pronounce his name? I don't know. He died. It's very sad. Died very young. But the treacherous brother, all I see is Fredo's. This does age him, right? Because there's probably, we're going to talk about this later, what is Nas's relationship to the youth? And most young people don't know who Fredo is. They know who Tony Montana is, but do they really know who Fredo is? You really have to understand Godfather 2, not just Godfather 1. They're both 3-hour movies. They stream on Paramount Plus. How many young people have actually seen Godfather? How old was Nas when he saw Godfather? I was in my 30s when I first saw Godfather. But still, it's a great idea. It's a great insult to call somebody a Fredo. It implies that you are weak. It implies that you are treacherous. It implies that you are just always ready to sell out your family. It implies all these great things. And at the end, you can tell he's just so excited that he sort of keeps repeating, like, you're Fredo, you're a Fredo. And at the very end, there's some space. The beat plays out. It's a reminder of how great Hit Boy is with these beats. Very goofy bridge. He says, "Is that Magic and Katie at the same time? Not Dumb or Dumber. They're saying the Dumb or Dumber sequel. Jeff Daniels, Jim Carrey's my mans." Like, did you really think Jim Carrey was going to be listening to Magic 2 and be like, oh, he just said something bad about my movie. Not smoking. I think it's, I don't think you need to worry about offending Jim Carrey. I don't know. And then 50 Cent's on here, and he is expendable. That is a joke that I wrote. It's on my notes. I don't have a script. I have notes, and I wrote expendable because he's going to be in that Expendables movie. I haven't seen any of them. They look great. Yeah, I never really got 50. I don't know. I was too old, I guess. I do like it because what he's communicating, very subtly, is he's got 50 Cent here, and then later he's going to have 21 Savage, and that's 20 years between them being the hot people there, and 10 years before 50 was hot, Nas was the hottest. When 50 was the hottest, Nas was still the best, and now that 21 Savage is the hottest, Nas is still the best. He's communicating very subtly, like, I'll work with whoever the hell you want. I'll work with Curtis Blow. You know what I mean? Like, I'll work with the hottest at 1980, hottest at 2002, and I'm still just going to kill it. And he comes back after 50's verse and just absolutely kills it. And it's a Queens thing. I get it. I'm glad. I'm glad he's here. I'm glad 50 Cent's here. I don't hate 50 Cent. I just never quite got it. Then we get to the song Black Magic. Very cool backwards beat, some faraway pianos, kind of start and stop. The delivery on this, I mentioned Houdini earlier. It kind of reminds me a little bit of Houdini, or sort of like the softer early LL Cool J. There's an interesting sample from someone called Lil Grim that talks about, black, voodoo, black culture, voodoo, black magic, all that stuff. I did want to say something, which is that in general, I don't like it when people use the word voodoo, because they usually mean it to mean something sort of bad and evil and dark and kooky. And it's a religion. It is a religion, okay? It is a religion. It's not an adjective. It's a religion. Now, okay, the religion has often been put against Christianity, even though it's often with Christianity. But voodoo is a blanket term for multiple different forms of religious expression, and we should not be throwing it around because ultimately disparagement of voodoo fundamentally comes from a place of white supremacy and colonialism, of assuming that Christianity is inherently better than voodoo. But I hate to tell you, it's not. It's not. Christianity is not inherently better than Islam or voodoo, and Islam is not inherently better than Buddhism or voodoo. They're all belief systems trying to make some kind of sense of why we're all here and what we're all doing. So anyways, that's okay. That's just my little thing. You know, I study a lot of stuff about Haiti, and it's often used as an excuse as to why Haitians should be oppressed, because they had to create some kind of religion when they were all thrown into a place and forced to burn their skin off to make sugar so that rich Austrians could eat profiteroles. My dog is joining the fray. He's going to sit down on his dog bed. But anyways, it's a long debate. Feel free to be upset there. Nice kind of chopped and screwed ending. Then we get to the song Motion. This is where I think the album really picks up. This is where I think from here on out, the rest of the songs are great. Ties into the water theme, the idea of motion. The beat itself has motion. The beat just keeps you moving, but then these strings are a little bit behind the beat, just a little bit. And there's like a bell every 4 bars. Just kind of like, he doesn't even really have like an opening verse. He kind of like sort of gets going and like restarts. I might spend there's this feeling of immediacy, and you really get the idea that it's just him and Hit Boy are just like, we're just, you know, the iron is hot and they're striking. I might spend a week at the Magic Castle. There was a thing which was played for jokes in Arrested Development of the fact that if you have a hard C at the end of a word, and then you have the word castle, it can sound like asshole. The Gothic asshole. The Magic Castle. So it's kind of funny. I might spend a week at the Magic Castle. I think this might have the best flow on the album. The flesh of vessel, I'm not obsessed with death. I manifest what's best. I'm ghetto tested, blessed. I'm having motion like an 18-wheeler out on a turnpike. My worst night, a motion picture, Fox searchlight, 3-wheel motion, West Coast-ish, overdoses, imperial pistols, ferocious, explosive, East Coast-ish. I'm not going to go word by word, but I'm just going to say, God damn, the flow is good. And it's almost like, and then it's broken up with this cool kind of almost old school, like motion. You know, I almost feel like I bet. I'm going to make a prediction here. If I could dip into my Escobar Nostradamus, if I could be Nostradamus himself, I would predict that there was a version that was like motion, like super old school, but then they just kind of scaled it back. Next song is called Bokeem Woodbine. Who's the actor who played Mike Mulligan, who is like the best Mike Mulligan? One of them has a steam shovel. The other one was in the show Fargo. One of the best villains / characters in modern TV history. Just awesome. Insane beat. You know, doing some of that reggae integration, the song Drum Pan Sound by Reggie Stepper. According to Lyric Genius, Hit Boy probably heard this song on GTA San Andreas, Grand Theft Auto San Andreas. Let me go one level deeper with you. So we've already mentioned Marley Marl as one of the great producers of all time. We know Hit Boy's there. Secretly, DJ Pooh, one of the great producers, West Coast producer, who is the guy who put that song on the soundtrack of GTA San Andreas. DJ Pooh was the guy who actually produced that whole soundtrack. So kind of neat. You never heard the song Co-Rock Stuff by King T? It's a good example of how good DJ Pooh is. But it's just an amazing, the cool thing is it's taking the reggae stuff and it's just playing it sort of in that sort of Kanye style of integrating rap with some reggae, but then that becomes the basis of the sample itself, and it's just a great sample flip. It does that chorus to verse thing right there. This is bars hitting, I'm still living couch to couch, motivation for the trappers living ounce to ounce. This is rockstar status, Neil Young with a bounce. I know you make you uncomfortable, make you say ouch. Lots of ouch lines coming back and forth and back with ouch and ouch and ouch and things that hurt. There's a real sort of old school feel to this entire album. It's sort of loosely based around magic and remembering things. There's a lightness, which is great. Next track is called Irvin Magic Johnson. The Magic Man. It's very kind of ratty sample. What I love is the way that Nas actually matches the rhythm of the sample. He's kind of like descending, and then it like hits this sort of stutter step. Again, another flow. I don't know how many different flows Nas uses on this album, but it's a lot. On my Irvin Magic Johnson, I'm enterprising. I keep it ghetto like the hood before they gentrified it. I might burn this itch down. Left Eye, Andre Ricin. I can't trust you, built for Cuban links unless we tied in. So make a reference to Left Eye Lopez burning down Atlanta Falcons player's house, Andre Ricin and Johnson and enterprising. All these great things. And it goes right into the first verse. Shout out to Ray and Ghost. Could it all be so simple? One of my favorite quotes. So going into hip-hop history again with Wu-Tang, who we mentioned later, and he's touring with them. And the second half of the verse is like this other beat. This is that thing that they do, that Hit Boy's been doing, where you have something that exists for the first chorus and the first verse, and then halfway through that verse, it changes into something else. The second verse is just outstanding, filled with flow and punchlines. And then Nas mentions that he's the same age as hip-hop. Hey, Bo. No one wants to hear you like anything. Especially not that. So just chill out over there. Okay, see? He stopped. You being a good boy, Bobo? He's a licky boy. He mentions that he's the same age as hip-hop, which is cool, because that means he's turning 50 like hip-hop is turning 50. Why isn't Nas at the hip-hop thing? Maybe he will be. It's exciting. Next track is What This All Really Means. What a beat. It's this weird intro, and it's funny because the beat gives me early Kanye vibes in a way, but it's not so much that it sounds like it's trying to sound like Kanye. It has this uplifting cleanness to the sample and the whole vibe, and just how synced the drums are. These nice little random sounds in the back. This is a lot of him reminiscing on his life and his career. When I started listening to Nas on this channel, I was sick of him talking about his career and how long he's been in it. Now that this is the 5th project of his that I've reviewed, I like it more. I don't know if it's that he's getting better at it or that I'm learning to appreciate the fact that he can do it in a way that's not laborious. I might have been a little bit burned out because Biz Marquis' last album, I waited like a decade for it to come out, Weekend Warrior, and it's a little bit of a disappointing album because he doesn't produce a lot of it himself, and mainly because most of what he's doing is talking about the things that he used to do. I'm the one who made you rock the body till it turned the party out, and I'm the one too, and I'm the pickin' boogers. And it just felt like it was death as opposed to movement, whereas Nas is always able to talk about his past without sounding dead. So he has a whole verse all about the album I Am, which apparently was bootlegged. I don't know, I just bought the album. I love that album. He's just a master of self-mythologizing. He talks about being in his 3rd prime, which is just a great term. He talks about like being 80 years old and having a gut and a Speedo. I like that image. I mean, I don't like that image, but I like that he's just sort of realistically thinking about the future, right? Because rap artists very often will talk about not having a future, jail or dead. That's the most common refrain. But he's really trying to put himself at 80 years old, and I think he'll be there. So I'll be 70, okay? So this is my promise to you. I'll still be doing this channel. Nas, please promise me when you turn 80 years old, you will release an album of yourself in a Speedo with a gut in the French Riviera, and you'll release the album, and it'll be good. And it'll be like the 40th Nas album I've reviewed. And Nas fans will still not forgive me for that one time I said that I thought he was overrated 20 years ago. One thing I love about the production on here is the way they just let it ride, and just listen to the hi-hat, this like shuffling hi-hat. It's great. The next track is Slow It Down, another insane sample, underwater sounds, pianos and synth. Is there a triangle? This was a cool thing that happened to me, where I listened to this sample and I was like, you know what this reminds me of? This reminds me of Marvin Gaye. This reminds me sort of like a What's Going On vibe. And then I looked it up on whosampled.com, Bortles, and it was Trouble. Look out for Mr. T, I think is what it's called, from the Trouble Man soundtrack, a great soundtrack by Marvin Gaye. So I was able to pick it out. This is nice too, because this is talking about how he doesn't have to try to appeal to younger rappers. Never had to get the youth to relate for the bag. So this is a conversation where he's sort of, 21 Savage said that he wasn't relevant. We'll be talking about that soon. And so in a way, he's saying like, I don't need the youth, but listen to how he follows it up. And since they're smarter than us, they know Nas was once they age. So, all right, I'm done. I'm officially done I'm just done. Like the fact that young people are smarter than old people is a fact. It is not an opinion. But old people cannot get that out of their heads. I am smarter than my father. You are smarter than your father. And your kids are going to be smarter than you, or they are smarter than you. It's hard to believe, but it's just true. It's a scientific fact. And Nas understands it and is saying it. And so he's giving credit to the young generation when most old heads are just saying, oh, you're just the hippie to hop in the... Back in my day, we didn't skirt. We threw our hands in the air like we didn't care. Things were important back then. No, he's not doing that. So it's just great. He's showing this sort of relativism and this understanding, and he's applying that understanding to the younger generation, thinking that they're smarter than him. Because let's be honest, hip-hop heads, the young kids today are more respectful of older rap artists than rappers of Nas's age, okay? Rappers in the 90s rarely gave a flying F-U triple hockey sticks about anybody in the older school. And the whole chorus is beautiful. Let's slow it down. If you got to slow it down, I won't laugh at you. Like, he's flexing so hard that he's saying, like, I'm so far ahead of you that I'll slow down, but I won't even attack you. I won't even laugh at you for having to slow down. A very confusing line where he talks about contracts and saying corporations is the modern day Custies, saying that he's winning over the corporations. Okay, Nas, it's nice to feel like you're playing corporations, but you're never playing a corporation. It's the house, okay? It's the house. You're not playing Louis Vuitton Moet Hennessy. You're not. They're not your Custy. You're their Custy, okay? Your corporations are not Custies. We are all part of this weird corpo state, okay? We have not, like, figured out some way to get around them. YouTube is not my Custy. I am Google's Custy. You are Google's Custy. Should I get a t-shirt? You are Google Custy. But then at the end, he slows down the flow. I might be moving at light speed, where he says, he talks about how fast he's going while he's moving slowly. I had a root canal yesterday, and this was the song I was listening to right before I went in to get a root canal. And I still liked the song, even though I had a root canal, and it hurt. He didn't use enough Novocaine, and it was painful, and it was with the ouch and the high. Great song. Next song is the track I already discussed, Pistols on Your Album Cover, and then we get to One Mic, One Gun, which has the guest appearance by 21 Savage. He was a couple times on that Travis Scott album I reviewed. And it's interesting because he has the line, when you're a legend, there's no such thing as relevance. So clearly this is all about this quote from 21 Savage. I don't feel like Nas, I don't feel like he's relevant. That's the hot take. He just has a loyal-ass fan base and still makes good-ass music. Is he wrong? Like, loyal-ass fan base, I can tell you as somebody who has gone up against the Escobites, very loyal fans, and still makes good-ass music. Very good-ass music. Great-ass music. Masterpiece-ass music, okay? Ew. Masterpiece-ass music. Like Jonathan while eating Cinnamon Toast Crunch. But the question of relevance is an important one. And relevance is a very difficult term, okay? Because when people talk about relevance, they're talking about appealing to the most important demographic. That's all. The most important demographic in culture, in movement, are young people. Younger than me, probably right around your age, based on my demographics of my channel, between the ages 17 and 30. What those people listen to and like and ingest as culture is the most culturally important, has the most impact, and most old people cannot be relevant to those young people. Great exception, Neil Young in the 90s, okay? Neil Young in the 90s, if it weren't for Neil Young in the 90s, Pearl Jam and Nirvana never would have been Pearl Jam and Nirvana, right? But, Paul McCartney wasn't relevant. Sorry, he wasn't. Figure of 8. He just wasn't relevant in the 90s. He just wasn't. he had loyal ass fans and made arguably good ass music, but he was not influencing the culture, the youth culture, which is the backbone of rap music. It will always be the backbone of rap music. I'm going to go to that show on Friday. I'm going to see a bunch of people who are not relevant. It doesn't mean they did not found this entire thing. Run DMC is performing, and I'm not going to sit there and pretend like they are not 1,000 times more important to hip hop than who's that guy? Bobby Shmurda, right? But Bobby Shmurda is relevant and Run DMC isn't. So, oops, that's just the nature of the game. It's competitive art. You gotta stay hot. So that's why I like how 21 Savage nuances his own argument without actually fully retracting it. When you're a legend, there's no such thing as relevance. Because of course, Nas is relevant because people are actually listening to his music. It might not be the 18-year-old in his Subaru driving down the block, whether it be in the city or in the suburbs or in the country, but rap artists are listening to him and know that what he's doing is ridiculously important. So it's nice hearing 21 Savage here. I really like his delivery. I really like how Nas describes how he sees himself. It's cool to be mainstream. I'd rather be timeless. That's what he's figured out. I like 21 Savage is really trying to be presentable and smart, talking about buying property as opposed to just having chains, talking about having Kehinde Wiley painting on the wall, the great artist, and sort of, I ain't going against a legend. I'm trying to be next in line. And that's what I think is great, is that 21 Savage seems to be understanding that there will come a time where 21 Savage is no longer relevant, okay? It seemed impossible that BG would not be relevant one day. But it happened, okay? No, Lil Wayne, still relevant. He managed to stay relevant. Is Lil Wayne as relevant now as he was in 2013? No, not even close. But you know what I'm saying? Okay. And then finally, he says, they want to see me effed so they could deport me like I'm Shine. This is very cool because it's 21 Savage doing the Nas thing, where he's talking about rap in a way that shows a deep knowledge of rap history. Do you think I own the Shine CD? You're damn straight. God damn. The Barrington Levy sample on Bad Boys, which I think is probably the only good track on the album. I don't remember it super well. He went to jail right after... But it's cool because he's comparing himself to Shine, who wasn't an American citizen. It's very interesting. I actually had to look at the track list here. Actually, no. There was a couple other good tracks on there. Yeah, oh yeah, Spend Some Cheese. I remember liking that one. Anyways, Shine's an interesting story of somebody who was relevant for a brief period of time and then he got deported. And 21 Savage is showing he can play the game. Nas will talk about MC Shan. He'll talk about Shine. So let's do the current ranking of the Nas hit quintology. My current ranking is as follows: Magic 1, King's Disease 2, King's Disease 3, Magic 2, King's Disease 1. I think this is the second worst of them, but I still think it's a great album. Those opening tracks, they could be better. So, do you want to hear the review of the Madison Square Garden show? So I gave the tickets to a guy named Ganoush. I forget how I gave the tickets, but I just gave them. I think I picked it randomly. And this is what he said. He said it was something special. Celebration of his legacy and a retrospective of his 30-year career. I'm just kind of skipping through here. A lot of old heads in the crowd, and the DJs asked all the 90s, 80s, and 70s babies, and there were a lot more 70s and 80s babies than 90s babies. So again, maybe that question of relevance. The opening DJ was playing 90s hip-hop classics for about 50 minutes. He Shazammed a song such as I Got It Made by Special Ed. I'm your idol. What You Want by Rough Riders. I can do all these songs. Biggie, Tribe, Mobb Deep, Dr. Dre. Said that he was inspired to listen to more songs there. The DJ kept saying happy 50th birthday to hip hop. And then that's interesting there. He said it felt very important. So the first half of the set were the King's Disease trilogy. And what he said was his biggest fear was that the rapper wouldn't actually rap. And that's my big fear about the show on Fridays, that no one's actually going to do anything. You know, it's just going to be like Snoop Dogg's going to go up there and he'll just say like bizzle at the end of every line, but not actually rap. But he said that he really was rapping. And he said it was really great. Almost every word in the production sounded amazing. One thing that I thought was interesting was he said that the second half of the show was more of a retrospective of all of his music. So I'm sort of glad that I didn't go. No, I wish I would have gone, but I wish that he had the courage to just play all 3 King's diseases and then leave and be like, you want to hear if I ruled the world? Great. You can go see my show some other time. But still, it sounds like it was a lot of fun. You know, life's a B word, ain't hard to tell. Made you look. Okay, I would love to hear Made You Look. Special guests included Hit Boy himself, Slick Rick, Mary J. Blige, and AZ. Said it was super fun. Thank you so much. I'll try to attach videos and send some pictures. So it sounds like it was a great show. Not exactly what I was hoping for, which would be like just the Hit Nas stuff. But there you go. All right. There you go. Tell me what you think. Smash the like bucket. You can buy a mug. Tell me which of the jokes is the best. Beyond 50 Cent was expendable. And there's the camera.